Am I here? Yes, I am. All right. Should we begin? I mean, is there Faiz, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. We'll take 2 more minutes uh, to start the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll wait for just 2 minutes to let other participants in, and then we'll begin momentarily. In that time, I'll share my screen. All right. So, good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to thank you for showing the curiosity and wanting to know more about um, how giftedness is identified and how giftedness is nurtured. And you all are here today for a special reason, and that is your children. If I'm joined by educators or parents and students themselves, so congratulations to all because of your hard work and because of that special spark in the children that we work with. They have performed exceptionally well, and they have scored in the top 15% of EI acid test, and that in itself is it's no meat meat. I've always said that it's something that we all should be proud of. And I am joined today for this webinar by my colleagues at Education Initiatives. We have Aarti Muralidharan with us. She is the Senior Vice President and Product Head of EI Asset. She's been working and she's been part of the team that has actually built the tools that we are going to talk about today, that is EI Asset and EI Asset Talent Search. So welcome, Aarti, and I'm joined today by Girish Raichandani. He's the head of global expansion at EI. So welcome to the panelists today. And my name is Saika Sultan. I manage the EI Asset Talent Search platform that Education Initiatives offers. And today we are going to talk about, it's going to be all about giftedness. It's going to be about what talent is, what high potential children look like, and how do we identify them, how do we nurture them, and we are going to have a structured conversation for 45 minutes and this will be followed by 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes of a question and answer session with the parents here. So please feel free to send your questions on the chat box. Any and all questions, we are here to answer them. And starting with my very first question, and I want to pose it to Aarti. And We are going to start with the foundation of it. This is like the base of everything we are going to build on today in this webinar, and that is, what is giftedness? What is what does it mean, and how do you define giftedness in an academic context? Over to you, Aarti.
Thank you, Saika, and good morning, good afternoon to all the parents here. And it's really nice to see a group of parents who are and educators who are extremely interested in knowing further on this topic. This is a very interesting question, and I would almost say it's like a fundamental question to kind of engage on. I'll just share one of my slides here to help us understand this concept of giftedness. I'm hoping you're able to see my slide now. Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk of giftedness, I think there's a common confusion, and maybe it's a great point to start to understand this concept, right? We almost always hear every child is unique. And it's so true. Every child is unique. Every child has their own personality, their strengths, and it's a beautiful and important educational principle. And good teaching almost always honors this idea that every child is unique. Sometimes we also tend to then extend that and confuse it with every child is gifted, right? And these are two different statements and they mean different things. For example, we'll say that every person has a unique fingerprint, but that doesn't mean every person has exceptional ability and becomes an Olympic sprinter, right? Uniqueness is universal, but exceptional ability is usually not. Which is why we say that when we say every child is gifted, we almost think that it deprives of us of an opportunity to be able to identify students who have exceptional ability, who need certain kind of developmental nurturing, right? And this is precisely then gets us to the concept of, so then what is giftedness? Right? We think of giftedness as something that allows for children to showcase their abilities, their exceptional abilities. They're almost in the top 1% in a specific domain where they are doing exceptionally well, right? So then the natural thing that we tend to relate to is, so are these students the top rankers? Are these students the students who do very well in exams in schools? Well, school exams and doing very well is one aspect of it, right? Which is where we're saying that these are high achieving students. They are able to do very well in the concepts that they are mastering as part of their classroom, as part of the curriculum that is there. And there is a different connotation to the word giftedness, and which is where we are saying that these students are able to showcase very advanced reasoning in terms of how they reason through different concepts, how they are able to link through different concepts across domains that usually their peer group doesn't do. They are able to ask a lot of why questions. When you give them a problem, not just they are able to solve the problem, but they're also asking, why does this problem exist in the first place, right? And the quality of the curiosity that they exhibit sometimes catches most of our educators off guard. And it's a beautiful place for these students to be in, because they are demonstrating certain potential in terms of what they can go about creating in the world going ahead. Another aspect of giftedness that we see is what we call asynchronous development, which basically means that these students are showing like top 1% ability in certain domains, not necessarily in all domains. And to give an example of that, maybe they're doing very well in science, but then when it comes to certain other areas like writing or socio-emotional learning, they may not be in the top 1%. So our gifted learners may not be gifted in every sphere or every walk of life. And so expecting these children to do well in everything may not always, hold true. So, how do we then look at defining and measuring this giftedness? And we say that in an academic way, we say that identifying an objective measure, which is top 1% of performance in the domain and ability to sustain that top 1% even when they are um, uh, engaging with concepts that are 2 grades above level is a way for us to identify that these are gifted students. So it's an objective, measurable, and a reliable way to identify students. And one last point, Saika, which I think is very useful, is giftedness is only the raw talent. I mean, it's the raw material, right? And it needs to be nurtured for it to become talent. Just like how carbon, when gone through the right conditions, right temperature, right pressure, and in the right environment, becomes a diamond. I think these children, when they're identified at the right time and go through the right environment, they have immense potential to convert that into talent.
Um, Thank you so much, Aarti. And it actually has led me to think that usually what we hear, and I think in a course of work, we tend to hear that from parents, especially that my child is doing exceptionally well in math or science, and we tend to connect giftedness with only STEM subjects, but that is not true. Giftedness can come up, can show up in various domains. And connecting to, I mean, just segueing into what you have been talking about giftedness, I want to understand how do we then measure giftedness in a structured way? So that is what I would like you to like share your thoughts on.
Yeah. So, I mean, educators and researchers across the world have looked at different ways of measuring giftedness. I'll stop my screen sharing and we'll talk through this, right? They have looked at several ways to measure giftedness. And historically, we've seen IQ tests as one of the ways to measure giftedness. But overall, with the recent research that is going on, IQ is no longer identified to be the best tool to look at giftedness. And we will talk about it later on today if time permits. But one of the ways to identify is to see when children are engaging with material that is above grade level. Are they able to showcase their learning? Are they able to connect what they know with what is being, what they are engaging with, to be able to know that they are in a position to be able to respond to those concepts, to be able to assimilate, understand, and showcase their understanding through application of those concepts is a way in which we identify giftedness.
Um, this so when we talk about measuring giftedness, one of the core, I mean, again, one of the core questions that I get asked often, and that is during these webinar sessions only, we've been asked that then what about the material for such exams, right? Well, what can we bank on? Because the one thing that parents connect with exams is its textbooks and memorization. It comes as a synonymous package. So I wanted to direct my question to Girish now and ask him that while most exams reward speed and memorization, um, what exactly does EIATS measure?
Thank you, Saika, and good morning to all the parents, teachers, and students. Uh, Saika, you're right. I think if we look at most of our standard assessments, including competitive exams, uh, they tend to focus on and they tend to reward uh, processing speed. Any student who's able to retrieve faster scores better, even if the understanding is little shallow, so to speak. And this whole thing actually conflates fluency with intelligence, right? But when we talk about depth of thinking, which EIATS and uh, tests like EIATS focus on, they focus on depth of thinking, which is a very different idea altogether. Uh, a child who has deep thinking is actually looking at a problem very differently and is not focused on answering or responding to the question very quickly, right? They're able to hold on to the ambiguity because the context may be unfamiliar. It may be the first time that the student has seen that question, and they're able to hold on to that ambiguity better than some of the other students. Uh, and they spend a lot of time on ATS type of tests, recognizing what is actually being asked beneath the surface framing of a question. And this distinction for gifted students is very, very critical. Many high potential children we've noticed are actually slower on surface tasks because they're trying to do more with the questions, right? They're trying to question the assumptions, they're trying to consider alternative ways of solving the problem. Now, if a test is based purely on speed, it would penalize the kind of mind that gifted students have. And therefore, ATS focuses on depth, and that ensures that deep thinkers are not invisible behind a faster, uh, but maybe a shallower peer. So that's the first thing that EIATS does. It measures depth of thinking and not speed. The second thing that it focuses on is conceptual clarity and transfer of learning. Now, transfer of learning, I think, is the importance is understated, but it's very, very critical, especially in today's day and age. We've seen that there is a lot of talk about moving away from rote learning, moving away from memorization and recall of facts. But our assessments doing that, our assessments testing for rote and memorization skills, we believe that yes, that's still the case in many of the institutions. And rote learning produces knowledge that is inert in a way that it stays with you, but you are unable to transfer it, unable to apply it to solving real life problems. But when you have conceptual clarity, it produces knowledge that is alive. It can be picked up and it can be carried into uh, new situations. So I think transfer of learning is probably the most powerful indicator of how genuinely the students have understood concepts. When child takes a principle that they've learned in one discipline, in one domain, and if they're able to apply it in a structurally similar but superficially different context, it tells you that they've understood the concept and the deep structure of an idea and not just its surface form. For example, a student who has understood proportionality, you would expect that student to apply proportionality well in a math class, but gifted students or students who are clear with the concept also see proportional relationships in other disciplines, like when they are reviewing a map or when they are reviewing recipes or trying to make food using recipes. They're able to apply that in speed and distance in the whole concept of music. So I think the focus on conceptual clarity is what is very different about a test like ATS. And like Aarti mentioned earlier, when talking about giftedness, we are also talking about testing students 2 grade levels above their uh, learning level or above their class level. Now, when you're testing students at their grade level, what you're measuring is what they have already learned. You're not really looking at the headroom, you're not looking at what they are capable of learning. And for a high potential student, these two things are very, very different. A gifted child in an average classroom is paced far below their actual cognitive ceiling, right? Grade level testing, therefore, would only confirm that they've learned what has been taught. It doesn't tell you anything about the headroom that's available. And therefore, when you test students 2 levels above the grade level, it does something very, very important. It removes the floor effect. It forces the students into unfamiliar cognitive territory where even if they've had prior coaching or they've had memorization of some of these concepts, that doesn't give them any unique advantage.
Right.
What comes out, what shines through in such situations is a student's ability to reason, to infer, and to make sense of the data that is being presented. And the fourth, aspect of this, why ATS is different from a typical traditional assessment, is that we're trying to test ability of students to connect ideas. Uh, Recall of facts is the lowest rung of Bloom's taxonomy. It's nowhere near sufficient as a measure of intelligence or potential. It's this whole ability to connect ideas, to see that certain concepts that look very different are somehow connected, or that there is a tension that exists between two ideas that seem unrelated. That's really a hallmark of higher order thinking, which is something that we are trying to test. Uh, Gifted students we've seen are able to see relationships that other students would miss, right? To just give you a practical example, now a 10-year-old student may be learning the concept of fractions in math in school, right? She would understand that one half is bigger than one fourth, because when you divide something into more pieces, every piece gets smaller. Uh, and let's say if there is a general discussion happening at home in their social groups where somebody is talking about how dividing a pizza among eight people would give everybody a lower share than if it was divided among four people. Now, a gifted student or a student who's really thinking deep about concepts is able to quickly relate these two things, and you often see them making statements like, this is the same concept as fractions, isn't it? And this whole ability to apply what they've learned to different situations, to situations which are more practical, is what sets them apart. And that's the whole idea behind ATS, to identify such students and then open gateways for them for further development.
Thank you, Girish. In fact, you've almost answered the question that I was actually planning to ask you next, and that is, when we had an EI acid test, so why did we think of going to have a stage 2, a level 2 test, and that is EI acid talent search? And I just to summarize some of the points which are core to giftedness that you just spoke about, and that is, one is superficial knowledge that students they bring from textbooks. There's the knowledge remains at a superficial level unless they are given real life contexts to apply that information. Once that information is applied, then we are talking about whether your conceptual depth and knowledge is clear or not. Second thing that I completely agree with, and that is the intersectionality, the interdisciplinary nature of the concepts, how a concept can be applied across domains. And once the child is able to do that, the why that they keep asking, why can't this be used here? Why can't this problem be solved this way? The out of the box thinking, the higher order thinking skills that you're talking about, I think that actually clarifies the picture of what giftedness is. So, although I was going to ask the question that why, like, what is the difference between asset and asset talent searches? And you were very clear about it, that while asset checks the conceptual knowledge of the grade level and maybe a level below, the enduring learning outcomes, EI ATS test 2 grades above. And I think Aarti also talked about it. And that is giftedness, high potential students, they need to be tested with questions that are 2 grades above the grade level. So circling back on that, because I want to go into it and I want to pose a question to Aarti, and that is, many parents ask us that students generally, what kind of students generally thrive in EI ATS test? And that is, are we looking only at class toppers when we talk about giftedness and high potential? So over to you, Aarti.
That's a very interesting question. And as a parent, I have been asking this question myself also, right? And the short answer to that is no. It's not only the children who score high marks in a class test or in a school test that excel in the EI as a talent search. And let's understand why of this, right? So if we take a typical school test, talks about or measures conceptual understanding of the concepts that are being taught. And a high mark on a school test means the child has mastered these concepts or is proficient in these concepts. And typically, children put in a lot of work, they are diligent, they are hardworking, and the result of a school test mark is valuable, right? It tells us that the children have mastered, it tells us that children are putting effort to do this. However, most often or not, these school assessments test for breadth as compared to depth, right? And that's the nature, and they have their own role to play, and it's perfectly suited for the role that they are playing. When we talk about giftedness, we are also talking about the depth of understanding, right? And we talk about depth of understanding, then we are wanting to check if the child is able to, like what Girish was saying, apply their understanding of the concepts across unfamiliar situations, across different contexts, across different even the artificial boundaries that we have created, that this is science and this is math and this is English and this is social studies, right? In the real world, there are no such boundaries as we are going ahead. So are children able to make those connections? And are those connections meaningfully sustained by the child? Right? So, which is where you will see that giftedness is something much more different from your regular school test of what it identifies. It looks at both the depth and the nature of thinking and not just reproducing what is being taught. Right? Researchers across the world have been continuously working on identifying the characteristics of giftedness, and a good gifted identification test checks for these characteristics as well as part of its identification. And one of the most renowned educators or researchers who's been working on this and whose idea of giftedness is very widely followed is Renzulli. And so Renzulli has these three circles that kind of talks about what giftedness is all about. And maybe I'll just take a moment to, kind of put that for just ensuring that we find it easy to understand. Right. So what you see here are those three circles, right? It talks about above average ability, which means these children are having ability that is above the average ability of peer group that they are always working with. They are in the top 1-2% of the peer group, right? But it's not just above average ability. There is another component to it, which is creativity or innovation, which is where they are able to then link through different aspects of whatever they have learned, they are experiencing, they have read across domains, across concepts, to be able to come up with creative solutions, or to even sometimes not even come up with solutions, but to creatively reframe a problem statement, to ask a question differently, right? They are innovating on different fronts. And the third most important thing is task commitment, which we usually use a word called grit or perseverance to kind of refer to task commitments. Now, what happens to an above average ability when they're creatively solving for something or associated with a task, right? They are undergoing struggle. The answer for this task is not going to come very easily to them, which means that they are in a place, in a situation where they have to sustain, they have to persevere through the course of completing or trying to find an answer to this, right? Which is where task commitment becomes extremely important. And Renzulli describes this as giftedness as the intersection between all of these three things. That you are, there is above average ability, but not just above average ability, but the child is able to then creatively use their above average ability and commit to the task while being engaged with it, right? And this intersection is what we call giftedness. And this is also why some of the earlier ways of these IQ tests that were earlier being used across the world is no longer considered to be a very effective way of identifying giftedness, because it doesn't touch all these three different aspects of giftedness, right? So to go back to your question, Saika, as to what kind of profile of children thrive in asset talent search, these are children who are not all, who can be school toppers, that's perfectly fine, but need not be restricted only to people who top your school exams, right? These could be children who are able to connect different things. Sometimes they may be just sitting in the classroom, who are, visually doing or who are mentally processing so many different things. These are children who may be asking a lot of the why questions in the classrooms. These are children who are quietly doing a lot of these different things, who can showcase these three abilities. And so a short answer to your question coming back is, it need not only be restricted to children who are topping your school exams, and it will be a wide range of learners who can exhibit these skills.
I think this kind of busts the myth that only high academic performance and students who are performing really well in math, high IQ students, and are the ones who are gifted. It's not. It's about resilience. I mean, I like the task commitment point, right? The resilience and the ability to not let go of a question, to dive into the why of it. I think it also hints at it goes into the metacognition aspect of like, why am I thinking like this? to think why I'm thinking like this. That's why we have so many children coming up to us. And I think this is a very common scenario where parents and educators have children who come and ask a lot of whys.
Right.
I am bored. They are bored because they're not being challenged. They are bored because they are resilient. They want to dive into something, but they are just not identified. And talking about identification, Girish, I want to ask a question to you, and that is, um, ATS test is identification. So there are the entire program. When I use the term program for ATS because we identify and then we open doors for our children for these enrichment programs. So identification and nurturing, they are two aspects of giftedness. So I want to ask this question because this is again something that parents ask a lot. Identification and then nurturing. How does ATS navigate? How does a child who has taken ATS navigate from identification to nurturing? How does this entire process look like?
Yeah, Saika, that's a very relevant question, right? So I think when we are talking about ATS, we are talking about identifying potential. We are talking about identifying the whole idea of giftedness, which has to then be nurtured, right? Because giftedness, if left alone to itself, and if not nurtured, will not lead to any real talent development, right? So what ATS does is it focuses on identifying amongst the high performing students, students who demonstrate potential for giftedness. So that's the whole identification part. But it does open doors to, it does provide a gateway to students to many gifted programs, both national and international gifted programs, where your scores on ATS are accepted and it provides an entry into these gifted programs. Now, one of the most well studied model of gifted program is the one that's run by Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth, right? And its origins are very instructive. So, Professor Julius Stanley at Johns Hopkins, he began the study of mathematically precocious youth in 1971, right? And his initial insight was very simple but radical, that if a child reasons like an older student, why should they be treated at their age level and not be treated like an
Mm,
older student, right? If I have the ability at the age of 12 to reason, argue, and look at things like a 17-year-old student does, why should I still be in grade 6 and not in grade 10, right? And then they began using SAT to identify mathematically gifted 12 and 13-year-old students. Children who score as well as college bound students at 17 years of age on the mathematics section were in a way reasoning at that level. So why should they be sitting at a lower grade level? So what CTY does, it basically operationalizes this whole principle of above level testing, which is what ATS is, right? So we do test a student of grade 7 on grade 9 concepts, right? Students are in this program identified not by grade level performance but by performance on instruments which are designed for older students, right? And therefore this also tells you what is the headroom available for each student. Once students are identified, many of these gifted programs, what they will do is they will offer fast paced residential summer programs where sometimes a year's worth of content is covered in 3 weeks, not because the goal is to teach faster, but it respects the pace of learning of these gifted students, right? What is observed about students who are gifted is that repetition is not needed so much as it is for average students. And therefore, they are able to compress the whole teaching activity sometimes into duration as short as 3 weeks. These programs also provide individually paced instructions, right? In a way, it personalizes learning, and students will move through the material not as per the pace of the classroom, but as per the pace that their own understanding allows, which is very difficult in the best of private schools as well, because there are practical considerations where the syllabus is defined. the teacher has to focus on finishing the syllabus, and you're not able to pay close personal attention to each learner. So that's what some of these programs do. And giftedness, again, like Aarti was saying earlier, doesn't mean that a student is gifted in all areas, of the studies or subjects that they're studying. They could be gifted in one and may not be as gifted in the other. So it allows students during the 3 weeks or 4 weeks program to focus on subjects which they are really good at and to build onto the skills in that particular discipline. And each domain is treated very independently, right? It will draw on obviously concepts from other disciplines, but if we see that a student is able to perform exceptionally well in a subject like math, then a lot of time, attention, and focus is given on building those skills even further. Now, longitudinal study which was conducted for CTY has some very stark findings. Students who were identified as mathematically gifted at the age of 12 and 13 went on to earn PhDs, file patents, publish research, much more than equally intelligent peers who were not given exposure to these gifted programs, who were not exposed to these enriched educational experiences. So the key lesson for us to learn is that identification is important, but what follows identification is even more important, right? Academic acceleration, when designed properly, it doesn't harm gifted students. It actually helps them. It supports them. It provides them with a sense of community, a sense of belonging. They may not be stretched in their thinking skills so much in a regular classroom, but when they're exposed to these concepts which are above their grade level, they feel challenged. And what's also seen at gifted students actually enjoy that experience and are able to relate. They would interact with peers. They would work with scholars who themselves may have been gifted, right? So even the moderators and facilitators who are running these programs, many a times these are people who were identified as gifted students themselves, right? So an opportunity to form a community brings a sense of belongingness and also develops their social and emotional skills in a very, very different way.
Right. Thanks, Girish. And I think we have a first question coming in. I think I'll pose this question to Aarti, that Advika is saying that do questions from school syllabus come in the acid test? And I think by extension, ATS.
Yeah, I think I'm reading the question too. Questions from school syllabus are also coming from acid test. You're right, Advika. Yes, questions from school syllabus come with the acid test. There is a slight difference between what the acid test is meant for and the acid talent search is meant for. While both of them are checking for conceptual understanding, the acid test checks for conceptual understanding, that is at your grade or slightly at a grade level lower. And the students who are identified as students who are doing excellently well in this test are students who are then invited for the acid talent search test, where the students are then tested for their ability to sustain that conceptual understanding at a 2 grade above level test. So it is this difference between the two tests that we are talking about. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Thanks, Aarti. And just going back to the nurturing programs that Girish was talking about, I liked what he spoke about, that repetition is avoided for these children because they are so quick on the uptake when it comes to learning and consuming new information. Also, the mentorship is one-on-one in these enrichment programs, and that students, it's something that is not it's something that cannot be practiced in a regular classroom, but when students do go for enrichment programs, the mentorship becomes one-on-one. It's very condensed. And even the courses, I want to just reiterate what Girish said, and that is even the courses are in a very structured but condensed version. Information is given to the students in a way that they consume it well, and then they are able to apply it in small projects too, because these are very hands-on workshops that students are engaged with. So again, connected to workshops and identification tests, I want to ask Girish my next question, and that is this just another test that parents pay the fee for, or can parents think of long-term investments as well when it comes to identification of talent at this age for children?
Yeah, very, very practical question. I think I see it very differently from just another paid test because, the focus of any internal assessments or any standardized assessments that students take is on the average student, whereas tests that focus on identification of giftedness are actually selecting the cohort of high performing, high ability students, and trying to distinguish amongst those students. And then if your student, if your child uh, has the potential and is identified as gifted, as potentially gifted student, I think the return that you would get from the investment that you do to further those skills is disproportionate, right? Because this will, like I said before, uh, tell you what your child is actually capable of, right? It doesn't impose the restrictions that we generally see in schools and in universities where you have to comply with a certain curriculum and with a certain syllabus. It will also, uh, tell students what their actual capabilities are, where does their actual interest really lie, right? Because uh, not every student will be equally interested in all subjects, right? We've all been through the education system. We've all had to study those, compulsory subjects. And it's only much later in life when you're forced to make a choice that you choose between a science and a commerce and, let's say, an arts, right? But if our students are able to make that choice at an early age and build on those skills and build on those areas of interest, I think it will really catapult them into a different, sphere, and the kind of contributions that they will go on, not just, in terms of realizing their own potential, but the kind of contributions they will make to society and what that brings to not just, the student, but to everybody who's around them, including the family. That those benefits and gains are immeasurable. So I think this should not be looked at like another competitive test, because the whole idea and the design behind this is very, very different. And we really want to bring to surface students who have extraordinary potential.
Right. Thanks, Girish. And not only, I mean, just adding to what Girish was talking about, looking at it's about identifying the giftedness the child has, the high potential and the child has, and ensuring that the spark is kept alive till such time the child goes into college. And we have examples of ATS scholars who have gone on to who were absorbed by the courses that they take by the universities, that the global partners who um, offer these courses and enrichment programs to us. The students went on to find the interest that the domain interest, and they were able to pursue that in the global universities that they had gone for these enrichment programs. So we have such certain examples of such scholars. And connected to that, again, there's a question here, and I'll add it to my list. So one question is that why is this talent search so important why is identification important? Biswajit Pradhan is asking this question. Why is it so important that I need to go for the test and identify the child as a gifted child? Aarti, over to you.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to understand why identification is important because, like we discussed earlier, right? If we don't identify, we wouldn't know that this child needs or can benefit from a certain kind of enrichment activity, right? And this is precisely why identification is important. And to just quote some examples, right? Mark Zuckerberg or Lady Gaga, both of these people have been beneficiaries of such kind of identification in their countries and have gone through enrichment programs, and we know where they are, right? Like all of these, identification is just the first step of the journey, and without the first step, child will not be in a child will not have the opportunity to get linked to enrichment activities. And once identified and the child goes through these enrichment activities provide opportunities for the child to be able to get to engage with concepts that are at their level. And if you look at typically what happens inside a school is the teaching and what is being taught is designed for an average ability level, and that's what schools are meant for doing, because they have a varied heterogeneous level of ability levels of students that are coming into a classroom. And probably this is one of the better ways to handle that, right? So what happens to a student who is possibly having a potential and is sitting in such a classroom, right? The student is going to feel that things are going at a very slow pace. They can do much more, but then there isn't such an opportunity that is always available. The problems are being posed, feels very thin and easy to solve for, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is sometimes these students tend to start to disengage, and their disengagement can show in a variety of different ways. Not always as boredom, but sometimes it also shows up in ways where these children stop asking questions because they feel
Yeah.
their questions are not being welcomed, or their questions are not getting the right kind of engagement that they would like to have, right? They're not at the level that they are thinking. The peer group is not at that level. It can also lead to sometimes restless behaviors in children, which are then sometimes labeled in classrooms, right? So while high potential children can go through schooling almost very well, doing very well in schooling, what ends up happening is an opportunity loss of having identified and nurtured that talent. What also ends up happening is that these children then, over the course of time, start making these mental models that they can, get to do everything that they come across, because they are always challenged at a much lower level than their intellect, right?
Right.
And so, at a later point in time, when they are coming across a problem or a situation that challenges them more deeply, they don't have the right tools and skill set for being committed to stay on task, which is what we saw in Renzuli's three rig model, right? The task commitment. The task commitment, while being a soft skill, not necessarily something conceptual that is being taught in a typical classroom, but these are soft skills that allow for us to be able to persist and to be able to do things more meaningfully when challenged at the right level. So it's extremely important for us to, identify this at the right age. And just to extend the thought further, right? Most often parents also ask us, so when should we identify? Is there a right age for this? Does every child, every grade child, have to sit for this test, or is every grade child possible to do the identification on? Our understanding has been that the middle school years are the best years for identification, because earlier to middle school in your primary segment, developmental abilities of children are also growing. So it becomes extremely hard to differentiate between developmental ability, the reason why the child is doing good, versus cognitive ability. As children come into grade 4, grade 5, which is around your 9, 10 years of age, all the way to 13, 14 years of age, which is around grade 8-ish or 9-ish, right? This is a very good and sweet spot period, if we may have to call so, where both identification and nurturing, both these opportunities are logistically and practically also possible. Right? Children have time. Children are cognitively developed to a certain degree that they are able to take instructions of a certain kind. They are able to engage with activities. They also have certain social skills that allow them to be with a peer group, learn from a peer group, and kind of use that learning as well. And beyond your grade 9, grade 10, there are several other factors that come into play. One of the most common factors as parents we know is there is this other exam race that everybody runs into, which basically means lesser and lesser time of children being available for other activities. And also, after a point, we see there is a certain clustering of high ability talent that happens, which naturally then makes it difficult for us to identify the top 1% in a distinguished manner, right? So
Right.
we think that identification is extremely important for the reasons we discussed. And middle school is probably the sweet spot for us to look at, which basically means that the window is open, but it's not indefinitely open for all of us.
Right. Thanks, Aarti. And a lot of questions are coming in with regards to the test, when the test is going to happen, and what are the dates. So I'll just quickly share my screen and take parents through some of the logistics, I think, because a lot of questions are coming in for the test dates. So I'll just share my screen and take you all through some of the main points and details that you need to keep in mind while for ATS test.
Saika, can
Uh,
I just request you to also, when we were talking about the gifted programs, I did talk about the Johns Hopkins, but
yeah,
can you also just share a slide on all the
yes, please.
programs that are available? Because there is also a question on what courses or programs are offered
Sure,
in the nurturing of
sure,
talent.
sure. I will. I'll share that towards just in a short while. I'll just take the parents through some of the core details that are coming in as queries. So children, you already must have received some email or a WhatsApp information, any message, maybe from the school, that you have been invited to take the EIATS test. And EIATS test is a level 2 test. It's an invite only test. And it is invitation is sent out to children who have scored in the top 15 percentile of EI acid test. So that is point one. The second eligibility for UAE kids is scoring at 1099 in CAT 4 assessment. So once you are eligible, you are sent out an invitation from education initiatives to register for the ATS test. Registrations have been open since Jan. The early bird closes on March 7th, and the dates there on the screen. A lot of all this information, all the pertinent information is available on our website, the links to which have already been shared in the chat box. The upcoming test is on now from March 27th till March 31st. That's where we have round 4 test. We have just closed the third test round, and for parents here, the early bird is still active on the website, and it closes on March 7th. The results will be announced towards the mid of April, and the summer programs will begin from May. So these are the dates, some information regarding the registration phases, as well as the benefits of going for the early bird. While we recommend taking all 3 subjects, registering for all 3 subjects, it kind of gives you a 360 view of where you are at. And it also gives you information on what your true domain interests lie. I mean, where is that spark alive, especially when you go across the spectrum of these 3 foundational subjects, and that is English, Math, and Science. Information of the fee and the dates of the test are there on the screen. And very quickly, I'll take you all through some relevant information about the ATS test. ATS test is an MCQ only test. It is of higher level. When we say higher level, we mean 2 grades above test. So if you're class 7th child, you will be getting a class 9 paper. And as Aarti and Girish have been talking about, this test, it checks conceptual knowledge, but through reasoning skills, through critical thinking skills. As Girish had said, higher order thinking skills. So you need to be able to use these skills, read the question well, and answer the question. The information you require to answer the question is available in the question itself. You just have to logically think through the distractors, to the options, and correct the correct answer. Duration of each subject is 60 minutes. And we have various combinations of questions in the paper, and it can be taken from anywhere. It's an online proctored test. It can be taken from anywhere, and the test rounds are from March 27th till 31st. This is our website page, and the links of the website is already there on the in the chat box. Important information to remember here, and that is device requirements. EI ATS test, it can only be taken on a laptop or a desktop. Web camera has to be on, compulsorily be on during the test, because it's a proctored test. And it cannot be taken on mobile devices for the very simple reason that is, these are questions that you need to sit with, read carefully. There are images involved in the questions, or so it's best if you take this test on a laptop or a desktop. And EI Asset Pan, the information is there again on the screen. You need to know your Asset Pan. You get to log in to your test using your Asset Pan, and it's compulsory during the registration process as well. You can find your Asset Pan on the EI Asset Student portal, or you can go ahead and ask your asset coordinator, your class teacher. They'll definitely help you out with it. Go ahead and you can download your ATS invite letters and leaflets. All of these documents are available from the school. And these are the core important points that I wanted to tell you before I will take you through the couple of videos that we have on, as Girish was talking about, our gifted workshops. So before I go into that, just very quickly on how celebrating the best of the best. We have prizes for the toppers and certificates for the medalists, the ATS percentile that you have to score. They are recognized, these three bands are recognized through bronze medalists, silver medals, and gold. So I'll quickly go through, I'll have to navigate through a couple of slides to get to the workshop videos. But we were talking about the logistics here, and there are a couple of more questions, I think, in the chat box. I'd like to take let Aarti or Girish take those questions while I search for that particular slide for the workshops. Syllabus we've already talked about. Yeah, so Advika, again, she's asking that I scored 94% in science and math and 97% in English. Congratulations, Advika, on that. You have scored in the top 18%, 85 percentile, sorry, the 15 percentile of acid tests. So she's asking that what area should I focus more and improve further, and how ATS can help her out with it.
I can answer that question, Saika. Advika, congratulations, first of all. I think you're doing exceptionally well. Like was shared earlier, you don't need any specific preparation for the asset talent search. I think go ahead, give your best, stay calm during the test, and just try to understand what the question is asking, what you already know, and how you can use that to respond to the question that is being asked. A general tip and a suggestion would be to, generally go about being curious about why things work the way they are. Just deepen your own understanding on different concepts. And this is not something that's specific to doing well in asset talent search, but a general tip and suggestion for you to go ahead with.
Right. Thanks, Aarti. There are other questions in the chat box for you. So one is how there is a question on AI and coding, and whether the workshops offer those subjects or not.
Right. So yes, the workshops definitely have one on AI and coding. Both of these, I think, will be going hand in hand. We would also share with you some material later as a part of the post-webinar material, wherein you will get access to a couple of these. You could also have information on the courses that are offered from our website, where we have put in all the information of the partners who are offering these courses. courses. The screen here, I think that is put across, talks about the different organizations that are offering programs, starting with Johns Hopkins, Purdue, GenWise, Northwestern, the Summer Institute of the Gifted, the Berkeley, UC Berkeley Institute. All of these universities and organizations are offering programs to nurture gifted talent, and there are a variety of different programs that have been offered in the past. Leveraging the power of ChatGPT, generative AI, I think that answers the question that was there. Also, a wide range of topics, right? Not just the STEM subjects, but cognitive psychology, how to become a writer, developing understanding of economics, game theory, game design, to very hands-on. How do you get into building a bicycle? So, which is introduction into engineering design via bicycles. Talking about aero modeling, cryptology. The idea of designing these courses is basically to help children stretch their thinking, get to do things that are both new age and things that are very rooted and important for them to develop, which could be typically in your STEM subject and non-STEM subject topics like psychology, writing, reading, things which are essential domains in itself.
Right. So there's another question on the chat with regards to how can we get to know how many subjects we are going to take, or is it totally our option?
Would you like me to answer that, Saika?
Yes, please, Aarti.
Yeah, so the Asset Talent Search is available for you to take in English, mathematics, and science, which are three subjects for now. If you could go about choosing a subject of your choice. We usually recommend that you take all three subjects, but it's completely your choice.
All right.
Just to add to that, so there is the early bird which is expiring on 7th of March. If you register during the early bird phase, you will have an option to select one or two subjects. Once the early bird closes, then the registration will have to be done for all the subjects. So if you're a parent or a student who's interested in registering for one or two subjects out of the three, then our request is to do the registration before 7th of March.
Right. Thank you, Girish. Now, Girish, connected to that question is Burhanuddin is asking, after successfully completing the tests, both ACIT and ATS tests, what will be the benefit to the child?
The benefit to the child, I mean, there are reward and recognition programs that we run where I think Saika was able to share
Yeah.
students get the bronze medals and certificates. But the biggest benefit is that it will open the gateway to so many gifted summer programs that are available. The ATS scores are accepted by all of these universities that are offering these gifted programs. So that's the biggest benefit that the students will derive once you clear the ATS round as well.
Right. I'm facing a bit of technical issues at my end, which because of which I'm not able to share my screen. But the information with regards to the programs, various programs, and the workshops that the students go for, they are available on our website, on the ATS website, and the link to which has already been shared on the chat box. I have, yeah. It's not audible to me.
We can hear you, Saika.
Okay. Yeah, I think although the screen is being presented, but I'm not able to hear. I mean, is it audible to you, the video?
We are still on the gifted programs.
All right.
Happy to play that video, Saika, if you want any of us to play that
Yes,
video.
please. Yeah, because some technical issue that I'm facing at my end.
Sure.
So, mm,
Let me share my screen. Are you able to see the screen, Saika?
Yes.
And tell me if you're able to hear the audio as well.
Yes.
I have been taking the ACID test since grade 4. You should take this test because you can find out so much about yourself. I learned to be careful in each question and just to look at it thoroughly. Through 8 years, I have been looking things more closely, like observationally, and I could improve in lots of fields. Just through 8 years, the amount of opportunities I could get, like the John Hopkins University, I was like really amazed because I heard that university a lot. First year onwards, everyone like knows everyone. Like it's so energetic, and the teachers, they are amazing. They teach you about interesting topics that you normally don't ever like learn in class. I used to be very shy. Being in Genwise, being part of your friends as a whole, as a family, it made me come out more often. So the thing I like most about Genwise is like on the last day, everybody does not want to go home.
Like the fact that she said that at the end of the programs, nobody wants to go home. So I think especially with regards to going for these workshops, whether it's with our local India partners or global partners, I think it's more about finding the community of like-minded people, students who think the way gifted children think, because one of the aspects and one of the challenges that gifted children do face, and that is isolation. And they don't, and as Aarti said, that sometimes their questions, they fizzle out, and they are not able to keep the spark alive. It's because the questions are not taken seriously. And once when they go to these, especially in-person residential workshops, although gifted programs and enrichment programs are available online as well, information is available on our website. In-person workshops have that added element of one-on-one connect with the mentors and one-on-one connect with the cohort of gifted children that they work with. So I will. So questions are around. Will they hear me? Yeah. So there's a question from Senthil Kumaran. What courses or programs are offered and what are the duration and fee structure? All this information, sir, I'll take this question. All this information, sir, is available on a website. Once you just have to navigate to the partner screen, there is a field which says partners. Once you click on that, all the global partners as well as the Indian partner, that is Genwise, the information about them is available on the website, and the page is also linked to their individual website. So you just have to click on learn more and go ahead and register for the programs. All the details regarding fee and course details, it's available on the website. Along with that, on Educational Initiatives official website, we have webinars section. When you go navigate to the webinar section, the links will be shared with you shortly. Once you navigate to the webinar section, we have earlier webinar recordings over there with our global partners, where the experts are they have taken us through the nuances of all the courses that are available globally as well as in India. So I request you to please encourage you to please go ahead and explore the the websites. All right. So if any other question is not coming in, I think we have covered most of these questions. Go ahead. We are here for although we have overshot by a few minutes, but I would still like to request and encourage our parents to direct any questions that they may have.
Yeah, Saka, I think there are multiple questions on where can children find questions for practice, any resources. I think if you may want to reiterate the answer to that.
Right. Right. So first of all, the resources link is right now in the chat box. Again, it's available on the website. You just have to click on the link and it opens a page where you have some exemplar questions on how the ATS questions look like. Now, one thing I want to clarify here, and that is ATS, that is EI Asset Talent Search question paper, is basically an asset paper. The asset papers that you have at home, please go ahead. They are the best sources of practicing that you can get access to. So go ahead, use the EI ATS questions, the asset questions that you have been working with. The difference here is that, and what the experts have been talking about, is that while asset checks your class level conceptual depth and skills that you should be proficient in, ATS is an asset paper that is given to you of 2 grades above. So if you're in class 4, you will be given a class 6 asset paper, which is the whole idea behind how to measure giftedness. And giftedness is measured when you are challenged beyond your the syllabus that you work with, or beyond the textbooks that you are that you're familiar with. So that is what we mean by 2 grades above test. And resources are available. The link is available in the chat box. Let's take another question. Surya is saying that you are not able to download your acid test certificate. Will we help? Yeah, go ahead. You can connect with us on the website. There are emails given to you. In fact, I will share my personal email with you on the chat box. Please go ahead, send your query to me, and I'll help you with your with the certificates. Let me just quickly go to that. Yeah, any other queries coming in? Let me see. Okay, I'm just sharing my email address. Please go ahead. You can send these queries to me directly, and I will make sure that I respond to you. My email address is saika.sultan@ei.study. It's there in the chat box. Send us your queries. Let me go to the question session as well. Yeah, okay. So will there be classes to prepare for the test? No, as the experts have already said. Preparation, this is a no prep test, EI Asset Talent Search test. It's a no prep test. When we say no prep, it means you do not need to read your textbooks or solve certain guidebooks to answer the question. What you require is you need to have the patience to sit with the question, read the question carefully, and use your logical thinking abilities to be able to come to the correct answer. So that is what the assessment is about. And yeah, so there's a question here, Girish. EI Asset Talent Search tests are they held in school like the asset test only, or are there any other steps involved in this?
So the asset talent search is an online test. It can be taken from anywhere. It has to be taken on a laptop or a desktop. You just need an internet connection, but you don't need to take it from school. You can take it from home. If you're traveling, you can take it from any other place. It's an online proctored test. A few conditions, like I said before, it has to be taken on a laptop or a desktop. You need to have an active internet connection, and you need to keep your video on while taking the test.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Girish. Yes, I'll just summarize what Girish said. You can take it from anywhere, from the comfort of your home. You just need a laptop or a desktop and access your test. So I think we have overshot by a lot, but thank you so much for so many questions. That's the most important thing. It shows that you were, you have so many queries, and so you're curious about the test. And I hope we were able to answer your queries, as well as for further queries, please go ahead, send your questions to us, and we will respond. And I want to thank you personally, Aarti and Girish, for being with us for this session and taking us through the the clarifying details and questions and queries regarding what giftedness is and what, why I did so much, Girish and Aarti, and thank you so much for the parents who are here and who have been with us throughout the session. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.